I went back and I refactored this a little bit. I'm going to show you what I did in GitHub, the changes I've made to the database. If you recall, I had a table for that had users and it had appointments. So it had like a user ID and an appointment ID, as well as some other fields. And I completely removed that table, more specifically because it made sense to add that ID somewhere else instead of keeping it on that table. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did to remove that. Unfortunately, I did not record the process of me doing that, but I am going to show you this PR right now that will show you the changes so that you can kind of get an idea of what's been done. This user appointment model is what I was using for that table that had the user ID and the appointment ID, and I'm going to completely remove this because of the new way that I'm doing it. So at that point, I just had a file that said this is the user appointment model, and then I'm just deleting that file. That's all I'm doing there. But let me show you the migration and what I did with the migrations here. So for the migrations, I completely removed, let's start with this one down here at the bottom. I completely removed the user appointments table. So as you could see, it had the ID, and this ID was then it had the user ID, and then it had the appointment ID, and both of these were foreign keys. And so I completely removed the user appointments table. Now going back up here for this migration, I added the user ID to the appointments table. So now we already have the appointments ID. That's because this is the table, it's the appointments table. So now we have that ID, and then I just added the user ID to this table just to make it a little bit easier. I realized I didn't need like all these tables. For me, it really didn't make sense for this project. Now, when making these changes for the migrations also makes me have to update the way that I'm seeding the data. So if we had a video on seeders, I'll link it below and above in the card, but basically I'm gonna have to adjust those now very slightly. So I had the appointment class here, which is the model, referring to the model, and at this point I have to add the user ID because again I'm adding the user ID to the table, and it's basically just a random number that I'm putting on this table, and it's between the first ID that we have and the amount of IDs for the user that we currently have. And I slightly changed the date of the appointment since this project has taken me a little bit longer than I wanted it to take. I adjusted the date on this, and then I removed the user appointment factory. So we no longer need this since I am no longer using the user appointment. So I just made those adjustments and then removed the user appointment model from up here since I'm no longer using it. So the last thing I did in the database seeder file was I removed the factory for user appointment. So if you recall, I just showed you in the model factory where I removed this user appointment, and so I'm no longer calling that anymore because it no longer exists. So this is just me removing it here. And again, I will show you that's just the same thing as removing this, basically. So hopefully that all makes sense. Drop your questions below if you have any. Like I said, I'm going to link, I'll have the link down below for a few things. So particularly for this commit that I did for cleaning up the tables, I'll have that here. And then also I will link back to the video prior to this the videos prior to this so you kind of understand where we've been at and then where we're on our way to. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please give me a shout in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.